So then we can start. Finally, thank you. We solved all our technical problems this morning. So I hope it will be a good session now. Thank you, everybody who supported us. Barbara and I, and all our colleagues here in the German-speaking countries, we were very much concerned, very busy in the last 2 years, or a bit more than 2 years, to adapt the new official RDA toolkit to our needs in German-speaking countries. And we would like to tell you something about this, what we did, what we reached, where we are. We would like to tell you something about the community development in German-speaking countries. We would like to show you something about our new cataloging manual adapted after 3R. We would like to show you how we are documenting all these things. And last but not least, some sentences, some slides about the application profiles we built so far. We're not at the end of the process, so it's state of the art what we can show you, but we hope that it will be interesting for you. We had an opening phase started some years ago in our Committee on Standards. So far, since many years, we were concerned only about libraries, but the opening process on to further cultural institutions is underway. And so we set up many working groups for special needs, for special resources. You can see them on the right side of the slide. These are the yellow ones. Different topics, music, going to performing arts, old prints, manuscripts, whatever you can imagine. And they are working side by side with the more traditional committees we are having, and they all together, we set up a platform for all working groups because we noticed that some topics are the same, the groups and the interests are coming more closer together. And so we created this platform, which is meeting quarterly, let's say, to show what's going on in the several working groups and to bring the results together. So we opened up the Committee for Library Standards as traditionally a library committee. We opened it up in the last years to more topics. So we are working together with several communities, with the museums community, archives. We had it just last week or at the beginning of this week, a great setting up with the buildings community. Ethnologists has contacted us. Judaica is a topic we are talking about. So you can see these opening phase brings us many, many issues more on top. And the authority file, our authority file, the G&D, is the networking point that we are having for all these issues. So that's where we are. And our expert group for cataloging, a traditionally library expert group, is concerned with many more things. The most important thing was the 3R project for DACH libraries, for the libraries in the German-speaking countries. As it's underway, a working group is working out new set of rules for subject indexing. We have all these cross-sectional tasks with other working groups, and that's a process that we will start more and more in the next years or coming months. We would like to participate in the further development of RDA on an international level, as we did it for years and since many, many years. So that's where we are. And I think the most interesting point for you is the new, our project that's coming to the end at the end of this month, the 3R project for DACH libraries. And it's Barbara who can tell you all the things we reached so far.
Yes, thank you very much, Renate, for your introduction, and hello, good morning to everybody in the auditory. Yes, I will present an overview over the 3R project for DACH libraries, and you can see it's the focus on libraries. Renate mentioned that we want to open the the standards for more communities, but in the project we are focused on libraries. And what do we want to do? We want to create a cataloging handbook. It's near to the German word Erschließungshandbuch, the working title, or cataloging manual. And we will do it in the project 3R for DACH libraries. And a lot of people here in the auditory, they are co-workers, very hard co-workers in this project, and we did a lot. We want to develop this handbook as a cooperative with the members of the expert group of cataloging and colleagues from the libraries to be more practical. The project durated from 2019 and ends in December 2022. But next year we will do trainings on the new on the results. We want to create a common handbook for all RDA users in the DACH region, and we want to continue our RDA practice in the DACH region. We want to improve clarity. We mix all RDA rules, DACH AWRs. These are practical rules and explanatory notes in one text. So we say it's more practical for catalogers to have all regulations or rules on one place. And we want to choose or present examples more specifically for German language needs. Certain regulations that have not proven, this is one goal, themselves in practice are changed or dropped. The text of the rules is made more understandable. That's very, very important. And the connection to the new toolkit is made by links. The new RDA concepts could be adopted at a later date after better examination. In the afternoon, you will discuss the aggregates concept, and we want to do this work later. Here you can see the working packages. We have 6 of them. The project managing, we had a lot of time to concept our handbook, and I think we have a good result. And the biggest working package with a lot of resources is the creation of the text of the cataloging handbook. Then we had the working package application profile and a next one to create training materials and do a training concept. The last one is a working package for the next years to collect open tasks. And one open task is to care about the new concepts in RDA. Coming to the text, we have a text in 3 parts, 3 big parts, like the RDA toolkit. The new one is nearly adapted from the new toolkit. We have an element part, and guidance part, and a resources part. In the element part, it's based on the new toolkit, all rules in one place. In guidance, we have topics like recording and transcription, or sources of information, or an introduction to our RDA or to the handbook. In resources, we create, like in former times, the workflows, all specific rules for monograph, for multi-part monograph, for serials, thesis, and so on. So the cataloger have all information to resources in one place. Here you can see the text. It's for a place of publication, and we structured the text, and you can go further, Renate. This is the text from our working environment. the Confluence Wiki of the DNB, but we want to transform the text in a Wikibase instance. Here you can see the link to the toolkit, then the formats in the in the databases and in MARC bibliographic. Then the definition in German and English, relationships to other elements, the sources of information, the next panel. Then the rules, we called it Basisregeln, the normal rules for all resources are in one panel. And we create, please can you go? And then we have specific rules for special resources like multi-part monographs or serials or integrated resources. Yes, where can I find the cataloging handbook, the manual? It's so far in the DNB Confluence Wiki. All project participants, they wrote the text, worked in this DNB Confluence Wiki. This will be closed for end of November. And then the text will transfer to a Wikibase environment, to a Wikibase instance, and will be part of the DACH Doku project. Renate mentioned it. Then we planned trainings. We say it's not really a training for 2 or 3 days. We think we need 3 hours. As for practical update RDA, we will plan to start it, or we plan to start it in May 2000 next year. And the target group are RDA users with cataloging experience. We have to do a concept for an RDA training for beginners. That's we couldn't do that in these 2.5 years yet. The next step is to work on the follow-up working package, to formulate the further tasks, to plan to work on them, and to prioritize them. And we want to care about the new RDA concepts in the next years. And so we depend on the discussion in the European group for our way to work with them. Thank you.
So I just will give you just an in-view of some things we did on top, but this slide will show you where we are so far. The initial idea for the whole project was to have one fits for all, a platform where all our rules, everything is accessible for our users, for the practitioners in one glance at one place. And so here we are, we created the DACH documentation platform based on Wikibase. And on the left side, you see that's what we did and what Barbara described you so far. That's our cataloging manual for the libraries. On the platform itself, there will be all information for our authority data file for the GND. I told you that subject headings will follow in a later stage. It's on work, it's under projection. The wider communities will give their information as well in this platform, and we will provide the application profiles. And the application profiles, I would tell you where we are so far, what we did. And first of all, we had to take some definitions. What does it mean, application profile? What do we need? What can we do? We had to take decisions about the definition of the elements. We had to take a decision for using the recording methods or not, and about the cardinality. This was the easiest one. Let us start with the definitions. And here we are orientated with the approach the RDA toolkit itself is providing, what is needed for an application profile. and what definitions for the elements are existing. If an element must be used, if an element should be used, we call it standard. If an RDA element can be used on top, is optional, or if an element must not be used. And the last one, these must not be used, appears very often for special communities. You can imagine for manuscripts, old books, something are very different. So, or for images, for example. So we have these 4 definitions for the elements. For the recording methods are something that came new with the new RDA toolkit. And in the first version of the German cataloging manual, we will not distinguish by the recording methods. These will come in a further step. So for the time being, each element is assigned to only one recording method. That means the recording method that we are using so far. For the cardinality, that was easy. An element is repeatable or is not. So how we came to our application profile. First of all, we use Excel sheets, and you can see this is at the left side in blue. It's a long list of the elements. We use the names in German and in English as well. And then we started for each RDA element, there is a description in Wikibase. These are the blue ones, and they are linked from the Excel sheet itself. So, and in a first step, we developed only an application profile for published resources. That's what we need for the time being and what we are doing so far. So the definitions are only for published resources so far. Then we went more granular. We defined these elements for monographs, for ongoing resources, and for integrating resources. For each element, the applicable status was recorded, if it must, should, optional, or must not. You know this. And some conditions could be registered as well. Then our wider, broader communities responsible for specific resources like images, for example, they provided us their informations, and we stored and registered in this Excel sheet as well, their definitions for the elements, and yes, and the information they get. And this, then you're coming in it's very different for them, so we will see. They went through the same process and record the status for each element and so on. Repeatable and the same way. So I said our documentation platform is based on Wikibase. So we had to transfer all this information from the Excel sheet into Wikibase. We have some colleagues who are doing this, and the team who is doing this just provided me this slide. You can see everything from the Excel sheet is going in the specific place in Wikibase. It's a transfer process. So then you have to transfer it with an instrument called Quick Statements. It's just an application that you can read it, then it's readable. And you see there's a second process to transfer it in a way that people can read it. So let us see an example. And that's my last slide. The team who's doing this provided me this example for cartographic resources. On the left side, you can see the element page based on Wikibase, but how it looks like then in the cataloging manual, you have the element and the information provided to this. And on the right side, you see the application profile, which is more or less a list of elements with the attributes the elements are having. And you can skip in the application, in the manual itself, you can skip if you would like to approach for your work via an application profile, which means I just want to see what elements with their attributes I have to use, for example, for a cartographic resource, or I would like to see all the granular information that I need to make for cataloging a cartographic resource. That's the idea behind. We are in the process to skip all our information that is stored for the time being in the wiki, in the DNB wiki, into Wikibase, and we hope that we can start with the first release in spring next year, something about this. And the work is going on very well. That's the positive thing. Thanks to all the colleagues in the German-speaking communities who supported us, who helped us, who worked very hard in the last years about this. Thank you for listening to us, and perhaps you have some questions for Barbara or me. I stop my screen sharing so we can see you.
We have one question. Is the subject heading indexing set of rules you mentioned related to RDA cataloging, or is it a separate project?
It is a separate project, but we had a project before that the existing rules for subject heading, they were reworked it's 3 or 4 years ago, according to RDA. Let's say what is in RDA so far. They put it into their rules, but we noticed times are changing so much that the group has to start a bit, let's say, from scratch to provide actual and modern rules for modern cataloging in this field. And so it's a huge project that they are doing, and that's we will see. I don't know when we can be able to provide it and can release it. But it's adapted to RDA as far as it can be. You know, RDA is not providing many things for subject headings. So so it will be, and that was the decision to have it as a unique part itself. And it's a special working group with special experts who is working on this.
Okay. Which specialists are present in the group that is developing the application profile?
Developing the application profile, all experts are at a first step involved, because when we described the element in the element page Barbara shows you, you have to put in all the information that is needed if this element is applicable for this, if it is all the attributes the element is having has to be stored and registered at the first step at the element page itself. And then the technical team, these are much more fewer people, they can set up on this. This is a technical, mechanical thing. They can take the information from this element page and list it up in the application profile. So the information has to be given in the first part of your work when you would like to do this. You have to provide all this information at a first stage.
Yes, let me add a little comment. The special working groups, like on still images, they have to add their element definition or their application profile in the element side, and then we can transform it in the Wikibase environment to build an application profile for still image, for example.
Yeah. So, for example, the community working on old books, they have very different information for publisher or printer or something like this. So they have to decide when they describe their needs on top to the element publisher, for example. They have to decide the same stage, what does this mean for the application profile? Is this for us mandatory or is it not? For example, many manuscripts don't have a publisher, so you can see.
Okay. When will German language version of the toolkit be published?
It was a decision from the Committee on Standards, our top level body for decisions. not to have, as we had in the past. We had in the past, we had a complete German translation of RDA. And the toolkit, we decided if we would go into this process as we did now to work out a manual, a cataloging manual, we will not need a full translation any longer. So the registry is the only thing we translated. It will be published in some weeks. We just loaded up this week, but we will not have a full German translation for the time being, because we said people in practical work, they will use the manual, and the full toolkit text will be used mostly by experts, and they are able to do it in English. Because the translation costs a lot. This has economical reasons as well.
Okay.
And we want to publish next year. We can say in the first
Spring.
half year,
Yeah,
in spring. Yes, we can say spring.
Spring goes into June, July.
No, we are early.
Will the absence of DACH policy statement in the toolkit be compensated by the handbook? Will option level guidance be covered?
You're talking about, Sabine, about the policy statements in the toolkit.
Yes.
Right? Yes, we decided to provide them via links that we can link into the toolkit and via verse, but we will do in a second step. We will not have the policy statements as, for example, for the time being, the British Library has in the toolkit or the Library of Congress.
But we can discuss if we publish the handbook directly in an effective way in the toolkit.
Yes, maybe in the planned or coming community resource zones, or we can think about providing links as policy statements and the place in the toolkit, in the appropriate place in the toolkit. But this, we said we will discuss it with the Committee on Standards. The decision-making body has to talk about this as a next step, because it was a lot of work to work out this handbook, and we couldn't do everything at the same time because it's more or less always the same people. You know this, we don't have 100 of people to do this.
How many people worked on this project? Were they working full-time on it?
Only a handful, very, very few worked on this full-time, or even nobody. Barbara, you can say about 30, 40. What do you think?
Person
yeah.
for the job. Yes, we create 2 months working units for 2 months, and so you can say I have time for the next 2 months and I will work on the manual, and so you need 4 or 5 days in 2 months, and in the next step you can say the next 2 months I have no time, so I will work later on it. And this was a good way to work for all participants or all workers on the handbook. And we have around 80 or 100 or 60 or 80 people who worked on it, and we have to coordinate the work. That was the project manager's work, my work in the project.
But
we had a lot of video conferences to speak about the work and to discuss things and answer questions and so on.
Yeah, we did the whole work online. That's perhaps is interesting for you. We did the whole work online, never in presence. And nobody except some here in the DNB, but nobody of us worked whole time. Everybody part-time, even me and Barbara.
Have you also looked at the format presented by Melissa Parent in March for the format of application profiles?
We gave some format information via the element description. but this was not, Barbara showed it, some mark information and some local format information we provided as far as we got them, because the DNB is using, we have in the German speaking countries different internal formats. So if we can get it, we will provide it in the manual, and if not, perhaps later on. But mark is provided.
From and Reinhold Heufelmann did this work,
Yes.
and he is in the expert or the working group RDA Mark and so on. He is
And the
our
Mark Advisory
representative in
Committee.
our Mark
Yes.
Advisory
Yeah.
Committee.
Yeah,